Ethan Cole had everything. Millions in the bank, a fiancé from one of the most powerful families in the city, and a future mapped out like a perfect blueprint. But when a quiet woman with calm eyes and steady hands started driving him to work every morning, everything he thought he wanted began to crumble. What started as polite silence in the back of a car became stolen glances, honest conversations, and a love so real it terrified him. He was engaged to one woman, but falling for another, and the choice he'd have to make would cost him everything he'd built. She refused to be his secret, and he refused to keep living a lie. If you want to know how a man walked away from millions to find something money couldn't buy, keep watching, and before you do, comment below and tell me what city you're watching from. The garage was cool and quiet when Claire Whitman stepped inside that first morning. Gray concrete stretched in every direction. Overhead lights hummed softly. A few expensive cars sat in neat rows, their paint gleaming under the fluorescent glow. Claire wore black slacks and a pressed white shirt. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. She carried herself with calm confidence, the kind that came from years of driving professionally. She'd driven for executives before. She knew the rules. Be on time, be polite, be invisible when needed. A man in a dark suit approached her. He was older, maybe 60, with silver hair and sharp eyes. "Ms. Whitman?" "Yes, sir." "I'm Gerald. I manage Mr. Cole's household staff." He handed her a key fob and a folder. "Mr. Cole values discretion above all else. No personal questions, no small talk unless he initiates it, no photos, no social media mentions. Understood?" Claire nodded. "Understood." "Good." Gerald gestured toward a black sedan parked near the elevator. "That's his car. He'll be down in 5 minutes. Always be ready 5 minutes early." Claire walked to the car and ran her hand along the hood. The metal was smooth and cold. She opened the driver's door and slid inside. The interior smelled like leather and something faintly citrus. She adjusted the mirrors and the seat. Everything had to be perfect. She checked her watch. 4 minutes. The elevator dinged. Claire straightened and stepped out of the car. She stood by the rear door, hands folded, eyes forward. The man who emerged was tall and broad-shouldered. His skin was a deep brown, his jawline sharp. He wore a tailored navy suit that fit him like it had been made just for him. His shoes clicked against the concrete as he walked. His expression was neutral, his eyes distant. Ethan Cole. Claire had looked him up online the night before. 32 years old, CEO of a commercial real estate firm. Net worth somewhere in the high 8 figures. Recently engaged to Vanessa Harrington, daughter of Richard Harrington, one of the most powerful men in the city. "Good morning, Mr. Cole," Claire said. "Morning." His voice was low and smooth. He didn't look at her as he slid into the back seat. Claire closed the door gently and returned to the driver's seat. She started the engine and pulled out of the garage without a word. The city streets were busy. Morning traffic clogged the intersections. Sunlight glinted off glass towers. People rushed along the sidewalks, clutching coffee cups and briefcases. Claire navigated smoothly, her hands steady on the wheel. She'd memorized the route to his office the night before. No GPS needed. The radio played softly in the background. Classical music. Then a news segment. And in local business news, Ethan Cole, CEO of Cole Properties, recently announced his engagement to Vanessa Harrington. The wedding is expected to be one of the most talked about events of the year. Claire glanced in the rearview mirror. Ethan's jaw tightened. His eyes shifted to the window. His hand rested on his knee, fingers tapping once, twice, then stopping. She reached forward and changed the station. Smooth jazz filled the silence. Ethan's eyes flicked to the mirror. For a brief moment, their gazes met. Claire looked back at the road. They didn't speak for the rest of the drive. When they arrived at his office building, Claire pulled up to the curb and put the car in park. She stepped out and opened his door. Ethan paused before stepping out. He looked at her directly for the first time. "Thank you," he said. "You're welcome, Mr. Cole." He walked into the building without looking back. Claire stood by the car for a moment, watching him disappear through the glass doors. She exhaled slowly. This job was not going to be simple. That evening, Ethan sat in a private dining room at one of the city's most exclusive restaurants. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. White tablecloths stretched across long tables. Waiters moved silently, refilling glasses, clearing plates. Vanessa sat beside him. She wore a sleek black dress, her blonde hair swept into an elegant twist. Her posture was perfect. Her smile was practiced. Across from them sat Richard and Margaret Harrington. Richard was a large man with silver hair and a commanding presence. Margaret was petite and graceful, her pearls glowing against her pale skin. "The venue is confirmed," Vanessa said, scrolling through her phone. "We're thinking late spring, outdoor ceremony, white roses, classical quartet." "Sounds lovely," Margaret said. Richard leaned back in his chair, swirling his wine. "Ethan, have you finalized the guest list on your end?" "Not yet," Ethan said. "We'll need it soon." Richard's tone was pleasant, but his eyes were sharp. "This wedding is important for both families." Ethan nodded. "I understand." Vanessa reached over and squeezed his hand. Her touch was light, mechanical. "We're a good team, aren't we?" "Yes," Ethan said, but he felt nothing. The conversation continued around him. Wedding plans, business connections, photo opportunities. Everything was calculated. Everything was strategic. Ethan smiled when expected, nodded when appropriate, but inside, he felt hollow. Later, when the dinner ended, Vanessa kissed his cheek in the valet area. "I'll call you tomorrow," she said. Then she slipped into her own car and drove away. Ethan stood alone under the streetlights. The city hummed around him, taxis honked, voices echoed, but all he could think about was the quiet woman who had driven him that morning, the woman who had noticed his discomfort, the woman who had changed the radio without a word. He shook his head and climbed into a taxi. The next morning, Claire was waiting by the car at exactly 7:55. Ethan arrived at 8 o'clock sharp. "Good morning, Mr. Cole," Claire said. "Morning." He slid into the back seat and Claire pulled smoothly into traffic. For the first few minutes, neither of them spoke. Then Ethan cleared his throat. "How long have you been a driver?" Claire glanced in the mirror. 6 years. "You enjoy it?" "I do." "Why?" Claire thought for a moment. "I like the quiet, and I like helping people get where they need to go." Ethan nodded slowly. "That's a good reason." They reached a red light. Claire drummed her fingers lightly on the wheel. "Traffic's heavier than usual today," she said. "There's construction on 5th. I'm taking an alternate route." "Fine." As they turned onto a side street, a delivery truck suddenly swerved in front of them. Claire reacted instantly, braking smoothly and steering to the right. The car came to a stop just inches from the curb. The truck driver honked and sped away. Claire exhaled and checked the mirrors. "You okay, Mr. Cole?" "I'm fine." Ethan leaned forward slightly. "That was impressive." "Just doing my job." But Ethan saw something in her calm composure. She didn't panic. She didn't curse. She simply handled it. "You must see a lot in this line of work," he said. Claire smiled faintly. "You'd be surprised." "Try me." She pulled back into traffic. "I once drove a man who talked on the phone the entire ride. Didn't say a single word to me. Then at the end, he handed me a $100 tip and said, 'Thank you for being a good listener.'" Ethan laughed. It was a short, genuine sound that surprised even him. "People are strange," he said. "They are." They drove in comfortable silence for a while. Then Ethan spoke again. "Work's been stressful lately." Claire didn't pry. She just nodded. "I'm managing a merger," Ethan continued. "A lot of pressure, a lot of expectations." "That sounds difficult." "It is." He paused. "But it's what's expected of me." Claire heard the weight in his words. She didn't respond. She just kept driving. When they arrived at his office, Ethan stepped out of the car and turned back. "Thank you, Claire." It was the first time he'd used her name. She met his eyes. "You're welcome." He walked into the building, but this time he glanced back, once before disappearing inside. That afternoon, the sky turned gray. Dark clouds rolled in from the west. By the time Claire picked Ethan up at 5 o'clock, rain was starting to fall. "Would you mind taking the long way home?" Ethan asked as he settled into the back seat. Claire glanced at him in the mirror. "Of course." She drove through quieter streets, away from the congestion of downtown. The rain grew heavier, drumming against the windshield. The wipers swished back and forth in a steady rhythm. Ethan watched the city pass by. Streetlights flickered on. Pedestrians hurried under umbrellas. Everything looked softer in the rain. There's a cafe up ahead, Ethan said suddenly. Could we stop for a moment? Claire pulled into a small parking lot. The cafe was tucked between two brick buildings. Its windows glowed warmly against the gray afternoon. I'll just be a few minutes, Ethan said. Take your time. But when he opened the door, he paused. Would you like to join me? It's cold out here. Claire hesitated. I don't want to intrude. You're not. She studied his face. There was no command in his voice, just an invitation. All right, she said. They walked inside together. The cafe smelled like coffee and cinnamon. A few people sat at small tables, reading or typing on laptops. Soft music played from hidden speakers. Ethan ordered a black coffee. Claire ordered tea. They sat by the window watching the rain. Do you come here often? Claire asked. I used to, Ethan said, when I first started my company. I'd sit here for hours working on plans. It felt peaceful. Why'd you stop? Ethan shrugged. Got too busy. Too many meetings. Too many obligations. Claire sipped her tea. Do you miss it? More than I realized. They sat in silence for a while. It wasn't awkward. It was comfortable. What about you? Ethan asked. What do you do when you're not driving? I read, Claire said. I go for walks. I visit my mom on Sundays. Sounds nice. It is. Ethan leaned back in his chair. I don't remember the last time I did something just because I wanted to. Claire looked at him. Really looked at him. She saw the exhaustion in his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. That sounds lonely, she said quietly. Ethan didn't respond, but his expression softened. They finished their drinks and returned to the car. The rain had slowed to a drizzle. As Claire drove him home, Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in years. Calm. That evening, Claire drove Ethan to a charity dinner at a downtown hotel. The event was elegant and crowded. Men in tuxedos, women in gowns, champagne glasses clinking. Vanessa arrived late. She swept into the ballroom in a shimmering gold dress. Cameras flashed. People turned to look. She kissed Ethan's cheek and looped her arm through his. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was terrible. It's fine, Ethan said. But he noticed the coolness in her smile, the way she scanned the room, calculating who to talk to, who to impress. Throughout the evening, Vanessa was charming. She laughed at the right moments. She complimented the right people. But when she looked at Ethan, her eyes were distant. At one point, she leaned close to him. Richard wants us to make an announcement tonight about the wedding date. Tonight? Ethan frowned. It's already arranged. Her voice was firm. Just smile and nod. Ethan felt a tightness in his chest. Later, when the dinner ended, Vanessa left in her own car. Again. Ethan returned to the sedan alone. Claire was waiting by the driver's door. She opened the rear door for him without a word. Ethan slid inside. He closed his eyes and rubbed his temples. As Claire started the engine, Ethan reached into his pocket. He pulled off his engagement ring and set it in the cup holder. Claire's eyes flicked to the mirror. She saw the ring. She saw the weariness on his face. She said nothing. She just drove. The next morning, Claire arrived early. She opened the car door and found the engagement ring still sitting in the cup holder. She picked it up carefully. The diamond caught the light. When Ethan arrived, she stepped forward and held it out to him. You left this, she said quietly. Ethan stared at the ring, then at her. I'm sorry, he said. That was careless. It's fine. He took the ring and slipped it back onto his finger, but his movements were slow, reluctant. Claire stepped back. Mr. Cole, I need to say something. Ethan looked at her. I'm here to drive you, Claire said. That's all. If you need someone to talk to, I'm happy to listen, but I won't be part of anything complicated. I won't be a secret. I won't be a mistake. Her voice was calm, steady, but there was steel beneath it. Ethan nodded slowly. I understand. Good. She opened the car door for him. As they drove, Ethan realized something that frightened him. Claire's integrity made her more dangerous to his heart than anyone else ever had. That evening, during a long drive home, the silence between them felt heavier. Ethan stared out the window. The city lights blurred together. Can I ask you something? He said finally. Of course. How do you know when something is right? Claire thought carefully. I think you feel it. Deep down, even if it's hard, even if it scares you. Ethan exhaled slowly. What if what feels right isn't what's expected? Claire met his eyes in the mirror. Then you have to decide what matters more. Ethan leaned forward. I'm engaged to someone I respect, someone who makes sense on paper, but when I'm with her, I feel empty. Claire's hands tightened on the wheel. And when I'm with you, Ethan continued, his voice barely above a whisper, I feel honest. The words hung in the air between them. Claire pulled the car to a stop at a red light. She turned slightly in her seat. Mr. Cole? Ethan, please. Ethan. Her voice was gentle but firm. I can't be the reason you make a choice. You have to figure out what you want. For yourself. I know. Do you? Ethan looked at her, really looked at her. I'm starting to. The light turned green. Claire faced forward and drove. Neither of them spoke for the rest of the ride, but something irreversible had been said, and they both knew it. The next morning, Ethan woke with a tightness in his chest. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from Vanessa. Dinner tonight. My parents want to finalize the engagement event. Be ready at 7. Ethan closed his eyes. He thought about Claire's words, about honesty, about feeling right. He thought about the engagement ring, about the life he'd been building, the life everyone expected him to live. And he realized something that terrified him. His heart had already chosen, before his mind had caught up, before he was ready. He sat up and reached for his phone. He stared at Vanessa's message for a long moment. Then he typed a single word. Okay. But as he sent it, he felt nothing but dread. That afternoon, Ethan sat in his office on the 20th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows stretched across one wall, offering a view of the city below. Buildings rose like gray towers. Cars moved like toys on distant streets. His desk was covered with papers, contracts, proposals, reports that needed his signature, but he couldn't focus. He kept thinking about Claire, about the way she'd handed him his ring without judgment, about the way she'd set boundaries so calmly, so clearly. Most people in his life wanted something from him, his money, his connections, his name. But Claire wanted nothing except honesty, and that terrified him. His phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. Free for lunch? Ethan typed back quickly. Meet me at Angelo's, 1 hour. He needed to talk to someone, and Marcus was the only person who would tell him the truth. Angelo's was a small Italian restaurant tucked into a quiet corner of downtown, red-checkered tablecloths, wine bottles lining the walls, the smell of garlic and tomato sauce. Marcus was already seated when Ethan arrived. He was tall and lean, with the same deep brown skin as Ethan. But where Ethan was composed and controlled, Marcus was relaxed. He wore jeans and a casual button-down. His smile came easily. Cousin, Marcus said, standing to embrace him. You look terrible. Thanks, Ethan said dryly. They sat down. A waiter brought water and bread. Marcus studied Ethan's face. What's going on? Ethan didn't answer right away. He broke off a piece of bread and stared at it. I'm engaged to Vanessa, he said finally. I know. I was at the party, remember? But I don't love her. Marcus leaned back in his chair. Okay. So why are you marrying her? Because it makes sense. Her father's connected. The merger will go smoother. Our families fit together. That's a business deal, Ethan. Not a marriage? Ethan rubbed his face. I know. So what's really going on? Ethan looked at his cousin. Marcus had always been the one person who saw through him, who didn't let him hide. There's someone else, Ethan said quietly. Marcus raised his eyebrows. Who? My driver. Your driver? Marcus blinked. The woman who drives you every day? Yes. And you have feelings for her? Ethan nodded. Marcus whistled low. Man, that's complicated. I know. Have you told her? Sort of. I told her that being with her feels honest, that being with Vanessa feels empty. What did she say? She said I need to figure out what I want, for myself. Marcus smiled slightly. Smart woman. She is. They ordered food. Pasta for Marcus, chicken for Ethan, but Ethan barely touched his plate. You've been living for other people your whole life, Marcus said. Your parents, your company, now Vanessa's family. When are you going to live for yourself? It's not that simple. Why not? Because people are counting on me. The merger, the wedding, the reputation. Marcus set down his fork. Ethan, listen to me. I love you. Your family. But you're building a life that's going to suffocate you. You think you're doing the right thing by keeping everyone happy. But what happens when you wake up in 10 years and realize you've been miserable the whole time? Ethan said nothing. You deserve to be happy, Marcus continued. Not just successful, not just respectable. Happy. What if I can't have both? Then you have to choose. Ethan stared out the window. People walked by on the sidewalk, laughing, talking, living their lives without the weight of expectations crushing them. She makes me feel like myself, Ethan said quietly. Like I don't have to perform, like I can just be. Marcus smiled. Then that's your answer. But what about Vanessa? What about her father? What about everything I've built? What about your soul, man? Marcus leaned forward. What's it worth to you? Ethan didn't have an answer. The next morning, Ethan decided to create distance. When Claire picked him up, he was curt, professional, cold. Good morning, Mr. Cole, Claire said. Morning. He didn't look at her. He opened his laptop and focused on his screen. Claire noticed immediately. The warmth from the past few days was gone. The wall was back up. She drove in silence. When they arrived at his office, Ethan stepped out without a word. Have a good day, Claire said. He paused. For just a moment, he looked back at her. Then, he walked away. Claire sat in the car for a long moment after he left. She felt the shift, the retreat, and it hurt more than she expected. For the next 2 days, Ethan kept his distance. He was polite but detached. He didn't ask questions. He didn't make small talk. He treated Claire exactly like she'd asked to be treated, like a driver, nothing more. But the loss felt immediate, for both of them. Ethan found himself staring at the back of her head during drives, noticing the way she tilted her head when she checked the mirrors, the way her hands moved smoothly on the wheel. He missed the sound of her voice. Claire felt the absence like a weight in her chest. She told herself it was better this way, safer, simpler. But every morning when she saw him walk toward the car with that distant expression, something inside her ached. On Thursday morning, Ethan approached Claire with a request. I have a work trip tomorrow, he said. A property evaluation upstate. It's about 3 hours away. I'll need you to drive me. We'll stay overnight and return Saturday morning. Claire hesitated. Overnight? Separate hotel rooms, Ethan said quickly. Separate floors if you prefer. It's just easier than flying. Claire studied his face. She saw no ulterior motive, just exhaustion. All right, she said. Friday morning arrived clear and bright. Claire picked Ethan up at 7. He wore jeans and a casual sweater instead of a suit. It was the first time she'd seen him dressed down. He looked younger, less burdened. Ready? Claire asked. Ready? They drove out of the city. Skyscrapers gave way to suburbs. Suburbs gave way to trees and open fields. The highway stretched ahead of them, smooth and empty. For the first hour, they drove in silence, but it wasn't the heavy silence of the past few days. It was gentler, more natural. Finally, Ethan spoke. I'm sorry, he said. Claire glanced at him in the mirror. For what? For pulling away, for being cold. You don't owe me an apology. I do. Ethan leaned forward. You were right. I need to figure out what I want, but that doesn't mean I had to shut you out. Claire's hands tightened on the wheel. It's okay. It's not. He paused. I missed talking to you. Claire felt warmth spread through her chest. I missed it too. They looked at each other in the mirror, just for a moment. Then Claire smiled. So tell me about this property you're evaluating. Ethan laughed. Are you really interested? Try me. And just like that, the wall came down. They talked for miles, about work, about childhood, about the things that made them laugh. Ethan told her about growing up with Marcus, about the trouble they used to get into, about the pressure he felt when his parents died, and he had to take over the company at 25. Claire told him about her father leaving when she was 10, about her mother working 2 jobs to keep them afloat, about learning to drive in her mom's old sedan, practicing in empty parking lots until she got it perfect. You're close with your mother? Ethan asked. Very. She's my best friend. That's nice. Ethan's voice was wistful. I don't have that with anyone, except maybe Marcus. He seems like a good guy. He is. He's the only person who tells me the truth. Claire smiled. Even when you don't want to hear it? Especially then. They stopped for lunch at a small diner off the highway, the kind with vinyl booths and a jukebox in the corner. They ordered burgers and fries. Ethan looked around. I haven't been in a place like this in years. Why not? I don't know. I guess I got used to fancy restaurants, business dinners, places where you're seen. And you don't like it? Ethan thought for a moment. I don't mind it, but it's exhausting. Everyone's performing, including me. You don't have to perform here, Claire said. Ethan looked at her. No, I don't. They ate slowly. The food was simple and good. The conversation flowed easily. At one point, Claire laughed at something Ethan said. A real, unguarded laugh. Ethan felt his chest tighten. He wanted to hear that sound every day. They arrived at the hotel just before sunset. It was a small, elegant inn surrounded by trees, the kind of place designed for quiet getaways. Ethan checked them in. He handed Claire her key. Your room is on the second floor, he said. Mine's on the third. Thank you. They stood in the lobby for a moment, neither of them quite ready to separate. There's a restaurant downstairs, Ethan said. Would you like to have dinner together, if you're comfortable with that? Claire smiled. I'd like that. The restaurant was cozy. Candlelight flickered on the tables. Soft piano music played in the background. They sat by the window. Outside, the sky turned from orange to purple to deep blue. They ordered wine. They talked about everything and nothing. At one point, Ethan asked, Have you ever been in love? Claire was quiet for a moment. Once, a long time ago. What happened? He wanted someone who would fit into his world. I wanted someone who would meet me in mine. She paused. We couldn't find the middle. Do you regret it? No. It taught me what I need, what I won't compromise on. Ethan leaned forward. What do you need? Claire met his eyes. Honesty, respect, someone who sees me, really sees me. Not money? Not status? No, her voice was firm. Those things don't keep you warm at night. Ethan felt something crack open inside him. What about you? Claire asked. Have you ever been in love? Ethan shook his head slowly. I thought I was, once, but looking back, I think I was just in love with the idea of it, with the stability. And now? Ethan looked at her. The candlelight reflected in her eyes. Now I think I'm starting to understand what it really means. The air between them grew heavy, electric. Claire felt her heart racing. She knew where this was heading. She could feel it, and it terrified her. Ethan, she said softly. I know. He leaned back. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. It's not that. Claire took a breath. I feel it too, whatever this is, but you're still engaged. You're still committed to someone else, and I won't be the reason your life falls apart. You wouldn't be the reason. I would. Maybe, but I won't be part of it until you're free. Her voice was gentle but unyielding. You need to resolve your life first. Not for me. For yourself. Ethan stared at her. Most people would have jumped at the chance to be with him, to be part of his world. But Claire was different. She respected herself too much to be anyone's second choice, and that made him love her even more. You're right, he said quietly. I know I am. They finished their meal in comfortable silence. When they left the restaurant, they walked slowly through the lobby. At the stairs, they stopped. Good night, Claire, Ethan said. Good night, Ethan. Their eyes held for a long moment. Then they walked in opposite directions. The next morning, they met for breakfast. The tension from the night before had softened into something gentler. They ate pancakes and drank coffee. They laughed at a joke the waiter made. They talked about the drive home. Everything felt easy, light, right. For the first time in years, Ethan felt hope. He didn't have answers yet. He didn't have a plan. But he knew what he wanted. And that was a start. They drove back to the city, the highway stretching endlessly before them. The sun was bright. The sky was clear. Ethan watched Claire drive, her hands steady, her expression calm. He felt a peace he'd never known, but that peace shattered the moment they returned to the city. That evening, Vanessa called. I have news, she said. Her voice was bright, excited. What is it? I've scheduled the engagement party, 3 weeks from now, at the Grand Ballroom, 500 guests. It's going to be perfect. Ethan's stomach dropped. Vanessa, we need to talk. I know. You're busy, but this is important. My father already sent the invitations. The press will be there. It's going to be the event of the season. Vanessa. I have to go. I'll send you the details. Love you. She hung up before he could respond. Ethan stood in his apartment, staring at the phone in his hand. 3 weeks. He had 3 weeks before everything became public, before the engagement became real in a way he couldn't take back. He looked out the window at the city lights, and he thought about Claire, about her strength, her honesty, her refusal to be a secret. He knew what he had to do. But fear held him frozen. The next morning, Claire saw the announcement online. She was sitting in her apartment drinking coffee, scrolling through her phone. And there it was. A photo of Ethan and Vanessa, smiling. Perfect. The headline read, "Cole Harrington engagement party set for next month." Claire stared at the screen. She felt something cold settle in her chest. She'd known this was coming. She'd known Ethan was engaged, but seeing it in print made it real. She set down her phone and closed her eyes. She'd done the right thing. She'd set boundaries. She'd protected herself. But it still hurt. When Claire picked Ethan up that morning, she was different. Still professional. Still polite. But distant. Ethan noticed immediately. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning, Mr. Cole." Mr. Cole? Not Ethan. He felt the shift like a punch to the gut. "Claire, traffic's heavy today," she said. "We should leave now." She didn't meet his eyes. Ethan sat back in his seat. He wanted to explain. He wanted to tell her he was going to end it with Vanessa, that he'd made his choice. But the words stuck in his throat, because he hadn't ended it yet. He was still wearing the ring. He was still going through the motions, and Claire deserved better than promises he hadn't kept yet. So he said nothing, and the silence between them grew heavier with every mile. For the next week, Claire pulled further and further away. She arrived on time. She drove carefully. She said only what was necessary. But the warmth was gone. Ethan felt the loss like a physical ache. He tried to talk to her, to explain, but every time he started, she redirected the conversation. "We're running late, Mr. Cole." "The meeting starts in 10 minutes, Mr. Cole." "Is there anything else you need, Mr. Cole?" She was slipping away, and he was losing her. On Friday evening, Claire drove Ethan home in silence. When they arrived at his building, she put the car in park. "Mr. Cole," she said quietly. "Yes?" "I need to resign." Ethan's blood ran cold. "What?" Claire finally looked at him. Her eyes were tired, sad. "This isn't working. I can't keep doing this." "Claire, please. You're getting married in 3 weeks. You have a life, a future, and I can't be part of it." Her voice was steady, but he could hear the pain beneath it. "I care about you. Too much. And that's not fair to either of us." "I'm going to end it with her," Ethan said desperately. "I've just been trying to find the right time." "There's never a right time, Ethan." Claire's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't let them fall. "And I can't wait around hoping you'll choose me. I respect myself too much for that." Ethan felt like he was drowning. "Please, don't go. I have to." She handed him an envelope. "This is my official resignation, effective immediately. Gerald will assign you a new driver on Monday." "Claire, I'm sorry." She looked at him one last time. "I really am." Then she stepped out of the car and walked away. Ethan sat in the back seat alone, staring at the envelope in his hands, and he realized something with crushing clarity. He'd lost her. The apartment was silent. Ethan stood by the window, staring out at the city. Lights blinked in the darkness. Cars moved along distant streets. The world kept turning, but inside, everything felt still. He looked down at the envelope in his hands. Claire's resignation letter. He hadn't opened it. He didn't need to. He knew what it said. His phone buzzed on the counter. Another text from Vanessa about the engagement party. Seating arrangements, menu, choices, photographer schedules. He didn't respond. He thought about Claire walking away, the sadness in her eyes, the strength in her voice. I respect myself too much for that. She was right. She deserved better than a man who couldn't make a choice, better than empty promises and stolen moments. She deserved someone who chose her first. Ethan set down the envelope and picked up his phone. He scrolled to Vanessa's contact. His finger hovered over the call button. Then he set the phone down. Not over the phone. She deserved more than that. He texted her instead. Can we meet tomorrow? Just the two of us. We need to talk. The reply came quickly. Can't tomorrow. Busy all day. Sunday evening? My place? Ethan closed his eyes. Sunday works. 7 o'clock. Perfect. See you then. He had 2 more days to prepare. 2 more days of living a lie. 2 more days without Claire. Saturday morning felt endless. Ethan tried to work. He sat at his desk with contracts spread before him, but the words blurred together. He tried to read. He made it through 2 pages before giving up. He tried to sleep, but every time he closed his eyes, he saw Claire's face. By afternoon, he couldn't stand the silence anymore. He grabbed his keys and drove. No destination, just movement. He found himself at the cafe where he and Claire had stopped that rainy afternoon. He parked outside and stared at the glowing windows. He remembered how peaceful it had felt, how easy the conversation had been. He remembered the way Claire had looked at him, not at his money or his status, just at him. Ethan got out of the car and went inside. He ordered a black coffee and sat by the window. The same seat as before. The cafe was quiet. A few people typed on laptops. Soft music played overhead. Ethan pulled out his phone and opened his photos. He scrolled back through the past few weeks. There weren't many pictures. He wasn't the type to take photos, but there was one. Marcus had taken it at lunch, joking around. Ethan was mid-laugh, relaxed, genuinely happy. That was the day he'd first admitted his feelings about Claire. The day Marcus had told him to stop living for everyone else. Ethan stared at the photo for a long time. Then he deleted every picture of himself and Vanessa from his phone. It was a small act, symbolic, but it felt like the first honest thing he'd done in months. Sunday evening arrived too quickly. Ethan stood outside Vanessa's penthouse apartment, his heart pounding. The building was sleek and modern, glass and steel. Everything about it was perfect, cold. He took a deep breath and pressed the buzzer. "Come up," Vanessa's voice crackled through the intercom. The elevator ride felt like an eternity. Ethan watched the floor numbers climb, 15, 20, 25. When the doors opened, Vanessa was waiting in the hallway. She wore a cream-colored dress and pearls. Her hair was swept into a neat bun. She looked elegant, composed. "Hey," she said, kissing his cheek. "Come in." Her apartment was immaculate, white furniture, modern art on the walls, everything in its place. She poured 2 glasses of wine and handed him one. "So," she said, settling onto the couch. "What did you want to talk about?" Ethan didn't sit. He stood by the window holding the wine glass but not drinking. "Vanessa, I need to be honest with you." She tilted her head. "Okay. This engagement, I don't think we should go through with it." Vanessa's expression didn't change. She took a sip of wine. "Why not?" "Because I don't love you." The words hung in the air. Vanessa set down her glass slowly. "I see." "I respect you," Ethan continued. "I admire you, but I don't love you, and you deserve someone who does." "Do I?" Vanessa's voice was cool. "Or do I deserve someone who understands that marriage isn't about feelings? It's about partnership, strategy." "That's not enough for me." "Since when?" Vanessa stood and crossed her arms. "You've been fine with this arrangement for months. What changed?" Ethan met her eyes. "I changed." Vanessa studied him. For the first time, he saw something flicker in her expression. Not anger, not hurt, understanding. "There's someone else," she said quietly. Ethan didn't deny it. Vanessa laughed. It was a short, bitter sound. "Of course there is. Let me guess. Someone simple, someone real, someone who makes you feel like a better person." "Vanessa." "I'm not stupid, Ethan." She walked to the window and stared out at the city. "I knew you were distant. I just didn't think you'd actually walk away." "I'm sorry." "Are you?" She turned to face him. "Or are you just sorry that you couldn't be the person everyone wanted you to be?" Ethan flinched because she was right. "What about my father?" Vanessa asked. "What about the merger?" "The merger will happen or it won't, but I can't marry you to make it easier." Vanessa was quiet for a long moment. Then she sighed. "You know what the worst part is?" she said softly. "I don't even blame you. Because I don't love you either." Ethan blinked. "What?" "I don't love you, Ethan." Vanessa's voice was tired. "I never did. I loved what you represented, the perfect match, the perfect image. But you, the actual person, I barely know you." They stared at each other, and for the first time, they were truly honest. "So what now?" Ethan asked. Vanessa picked up her wine glass. "Now you leave. I'll handle my father. I'll handle the press. I'll spin it so it doesn't ruin either of us." "Vanessa, go, Ethan." Her voice was firm but not unkind. "Go find your simple, real love, and stop wasting both our times." Ethan pulled the engagement ring off his finger. He set it on the table. "Thank you," he said quietly. Vanessa didn't respond. Ethan walked to the door. As he reached for the handle, Vanessa spoke again. "For what it's worth," she said, "I hope she's worth it." Ethan looked back. "She is." Then he left. Monday morning, Ethan woke feeling lighter than he had in months. The engagement was over. The weight was gone. But he still didn't have Claire. And he didn't know if he ever would. He got dressed and went downstairs. A different car was waiting. A different driver. A man in his 50s with gray hair and a professional smile. "Good morning, Mr. Cole. I'm Robert. I'll be your driver going forward." "Good morning, Robert." Ethan slid into the back seat. The car smelled wrong. Felt wrong. Everything was wrong without Claire. "Where to, sir?" Ethan gave the address of his office. As they drove, he stared out the window. He thought about calling Claire. But what would he say? "I ended the engagement. Will you come back?" It felt selfish, like he was expecting her to reward him for doing what he should have done weeks ago. No. He needed to give her space, even if it killed him. That afternoon, Richard Harrington walked into Ethan's office unannounced. He was a large man with silver hair and cold eyes. He wore an expensive suit and carried himself like someone used to getting what he wanted. "Richard," Ethan said, standing, "I wasn't expecting you." "I'm sure you weren't." Richard closed the door behind him. "Vanessa told me about your conversation." Ethan braced himself. "I'm sorry." "Don't apologize." Richard waved a hand dismissively. "Apologizing is for people who regret their choices. Do you regret ending the engagement?" "No." "Then don't apologize." Richard sat down without being invited. "I'm disappointed. The merger would have been smoother with a family connection, but business is business. We'll find another way." Ethan frowned. "That's it? What did you expect? Threats? Yelling?" Richard smiled coldly. "I'm a businessman, Ethan. I don't make emotional decisions. Neither should you. This wasn't an emotional decision. It was the right one." "Was it?" Richard leaned back in his chair. "You walked away from stability, from power, from a woman who understood the game. For what? A feeling?" "For honesty," Richard laughed. "Honesty doesn't pay bills. It doesn't close deals. It doesn't build empires. Maybe not, but it lets you sleep at night." Richard studied him for a long moment. Then he stood. "You're softer than I thought," he said. "But I'll give you credit. You had the spine to walk away. Most men don't." He walked to the door and paused. "The merger is off," he said. "Consider that the price of your honesty." Then he left. Ethan stood alone in his office. He should have felt devastated. The merger was worth millions. It would have expanded his company, secured his reputation. But all he felt was relief. He'd traded the merger for his soul, and it was worth it. That evening, Marcus stopped by Ethan's apartment with pizza and beer. "I heard about Vanessa," Marcus said, setting the boxes on the counter. "News travels fast. Her father's already spinning it, says it was mutual. No hard feelings." Marcus grabbed a slice. "Is that true?" "More or less." Ethan opened a beer. "She didn't love me either. We were both just going through the motions." "So you're free." "I'm free." "And Claire?" Ethan's expression darkened. "She resigned. I haven't seen her since." Marcus swore softly. "Did you try calling her?" "No." "Why not?" "Because I don't want her to think I ended the engagement just to get her back. I want her to know I did it because it was the right thing to do." "For me." Marcus nodded slowly. "That's smart, but man, you can't just let her go." "I'm not. I need to figure out where she is first." "And how are you going to do that?" Ethan pulled out his phone. "Gerald has her contact information, employment records." "Are you going to call her?" "No, I'm going to find her." The next morning, Ethan called Gerald. I need Claire Whitman's address, he said. There was a pause. Sir, I'm not sure that's appropriate. Gerald, please. Another pause. Then Gerald sighed. She lives on Oak Street, number 42. But Mr. Cole, she specifically requested that we not contact her. I understand. Thank you. Ethan hung up and stared at the address he'd written down. Oak Street, 42. He looked at his watch. 3 o'clock. He grabbed his keys. Oak Street was in a quiet neighborhood on the edge of the city. Small houses with front porches, trees lining the sidewalk, kids playing in yards. It was the kind of place Ethan never went, the kind of place that felt like home. He parked outside number 42. It was a small brick house with white shutters. A porch swing moved gently in the breeze. Flowers bloomed in window boxes. Ethan sat in his car, gathering courage. Then he saw her. Claire stepped out the front door carrying a box. She wore jeans and a simple t-shirt. Her hair was pulled back. She looked tired. Behind her, an older woman appeared. She was in her 50s, with graying hair and Claire's same calm expression. Claire's mother. They loaded the box into a small moving truck parked in the driveway. Ethan's heart sank. She was leaving. He got out of the car and walked toward the house. Claire looked up. Her eyes widened. Ethan. Her mother turned. She looked between them, her expression guarded. Hi, Ethan said. His voice came out rough. What are you doing here? Claire asked. I needed to talk to you. Gerald gave me your address. I'm sorry if that's... It's fine. Claire glanced at her mother. Mom, this is Ethan Cole. Ethan, this is my mother, Lena. Lena nodded politely but didn't smile. I'll be inside. She disappeared into the house, leaving them alone. Claire crossed her arms. How did you know I was leaving? I didn't. Ethan looked at the moving truck. Where are you going? My aunt has a house upstate. She needs help managing her property. I thought it would be good to get away for a while. When do you leave? Tomorrow morning. Tomorrow. Ethan felt panic rise in his chest. Claire, I ended the engagement. She went very still. What? I talked to Vanessa on Sunday. I told her I couldn't marry her. It's over. Claire stared at him. Why? Because it was the right thing to do. Because I don't love her. Because I was living a lie. Ethan, I'm not telling you this because I expect anything, he said quickly. I'm telling you because you deserve to know. You were right. I needed to fix my life. For myself, not for you. Not for anyone else. Claire's eyes filled with tears. I'm proud of you. But I also need you to know. Ethan stepped closer. I love you, Claire. I know it's fast. I know it's complicated. But it's true. And I don't expect you to say it back. I don't expect you to change your plans. I needed you to know. A tear slipped down Claire's cheek. I love you too, she whispered. Ethan's breath caught. But I'm still scared, Claire continued. You just ended an engagement. You just walked away from everything you built. How do I know you won't regret it? How do I know you won't resent me for it? You don't, Ethan said honestly. But I know, and I'm asking you to trust me. Claire wiped her eyes. It's not that simple. Why not? Because you're still figuring out who you are without all the expectations, and I can't be the next thing you build your life around. You need time, space, to stand on your own. Ethan felt his chest tighten. So you're still leaving? Claire nodded. I need time too. I need to know that I'm not just running toward you, that I'm choosing this because it's right, not because it feels good. Ethan wanted to argue, to beg her to stay, but he understood. How long? He asked quietly. I don't know, a few weeks, maybe longer. And then? Claire smiled through her tears. And then we'll see. Ethan reached out and took her hand. She didn't pull away. I'll wait, he said, as long as it takes. Claire squeezed his hand. Thank you. They stood there for a long moment, holding on, letting go. Then Claire stepped back. I should finish packing. Yeah, of course. Ethan turned to leave, then he stopped. Claire? Yes? When you come back, will you call me? She smiled. I will. Ethan nodded. Then he walked back to his car. As he drove away, he looked in the rearview mirror. Claire stood on the porch watching him go, and for the first time in his life, Ethan understood what it meant to love someone enough to let them go. The weeks that followed were the longest of Ethan's life. He threw himself into work, not to escape, not to distract himself, but to rebuild. He met with his team, he restructured deals, he found new partners to replace Richard Harrington's backing. It was harder without the merger, slower, more uncertain, but it felt honest. Marcus stopped by the office often, sometimes with advice, sometimes just with coffee and silence. "You're different," Marcus said one afternoon. They sat in Ethan's office watching the city through the windows. "How so?" "Lighter, like you're not carrying the weight of the world anymore." Ethan smiled slightly. "I'm not carrying expectations anymore, just responsibilities. There's a difference." "Big difference." Marcus took a sip of coffee. "Heard from Claire?" "No. You okay with that?" "I have to be," Marcus nodded. "You're doing the right thing, giving her space, but man, that doesn't make it easier." "No, it doesn't." Ethan looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, beyond the buildings and the noise, Claire was figuring out her own path, and he had to trust that it would lead back to him. 3 weeks after Claire left, Ethan received a call from an unknown number. His heart jumped. He answered immediately. "Hello? Ethan?" It was a woman's voice, but not Claire's. "Yes?" "This is Lena, Claire's mother." Ethan sat up straighter. "Is everything okay? Is Claire—" "She's fine." Lena's voice was calm. "I'm calling because I think you and I should talk." "Of course. When?" "Are you free this evening? There's a diner on Oak Street, Maggie's, 6 o'clock. "I'll be there." Maggie's diner was small and cozy. Red booths, checkered floors, the smell of coffee and pie. Lena was already seated when Ethan arrived. She wore a simple blue sweater and jeans. Her expression was unreadable. Ethan slid into the booth across from her. "Thank you for meeting me." "I ordered coffee," Lena said. "Hope that's okay." "That's fine." A waitress brought 2 mugs and filled them. Lena added cream to hers. Ethan drank his black. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Lena said, "Claire didn't tell me to call you." "I figured. But I needed to see for myself. The kind of man you are." Ethan met her eyes. "And what do you see?" Lena studied him. "I see someone who's been hurt, someone who's trying to figure out who he is, someone who loves my daughter." "I do love her." "I know. I could tell the moment I saw you standing in my driveway." Lena took a sip of coffee. "But love isn't enough, Ethan. Not by itself." "I know that too." "Do you?" Lena leaned forward. "Because Claire's been hurt before, by a man who said he loved her but couldn't fit her into his life. She won't go through that again. I won't let her. I don't want to hurt her. Nobody ever does, but it happens anyway." Lena's voice was firm but not unkind. "My daughter is strong. She's kind. She's honest. And she deserves someone who will stand beside her, not someone who will put her second when things get hard." "I ended my engagement for her." "No," Lena shook her head. "You ended your engagement for yourself. And that's good. That's what you needed to do. But don't confuse the two. Claire didn't ask you to leave Vanessa. She asked you to be honest with yourself." Ethan felt the truth of her words settle over him. "You're right," he said quietly. Lena's expression softened slightly. "I'm not trying to be harsh. I'm trying to protect my daughter. That's my job." "I understand, and I respect that." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Lena smiled. "She talks about you, you know. When she calls." Ethan's heart skipped. "She does?" "Not often, but enough." Lena stirred her coffee. "She misses you, but she's also finding herself. She's helping my sister with the property. She's painting. She's reading. She's healing. That's good." "It is." Lena looked at him. "But she's also scared. Scared that if she comes back, you'll still be figuring things out. Scared that she'll just be a chapter in your story instead of a partner." "She won't be." "Then prove it." Lena's voice was gentle but firm. "Not with words, with time, with consistency. Show her that you're not just running from your old life. Show her you're building a new one, one that has room for her, but also room for yourself." Ethan nodded slowly. "How do I do that?" "You keep doing what you're doing. You keep being honest. You keep showing up. And when she's ready, she'll come back. And if she doesn't," Lena smiled sadly, "then you'll have learned something about yourself anyway." 4 weeks became 5, then 6. Ethan settled into a new rhythm. He woke early and went for runs, something he hadn't done in years. The morning air was cool and clear. His mind felt sharper. He had dinner with Marcus once a week. They talked about life, about business, about everything except Claire, because there was nothing to say. She was gone. He was waiting. That was all. But waiting wasn't passive. Ethan realized that now. Waiting meant building a life worth coming back to. He volunteered at a youth center downtown, teaching kids about business and financial literacy. It was something he'd always wanted to do but never had time for. The kids asked him questions, hard questions, questions that made him think. Why do you do this job if it's so stressful? How do you know when to quit something? What's more important, money or happiness? Ethan answered honestly, and in answering them, he found answers for himself. 7 weeks after Claire left, Ethan's phone rang late one evening. He was sitting on his couch, reading. He glanced at the screen. Unknown number, he answered. Hello? Hi. His breath caught. Claire. Hi, he said softly. There was a pause. Then Claire laughed. It was a small, nervous sound. I don't know what to say now. You don't have to say anything. It's just good to hear your voice. It's good to hear yours too. They sat in silence for a moment, but it wasn't awkward. It was comfortable. How have you been? Claire asked. Good, different, better. Ethan leaned back. What about you? The same. I've been helping my aunt, working on the property, thinking a lot. About what? About everything. Claire paused. About you. Ethan's heart raced. Yeah? Yeah. Her voice was soft. I've been trying to figure out if I'm ready, if you're ready, if this could really work. And I don't know, but I want to find out. Ethan closed his eyes. Relief washed over him. So do I. I'm coming back, Claire said. Next week. I'm not sure what happens after that, but I think we should talk, really talk, about what we want, what we need. I'd like that. Me too. They talked for another hour, about nothing and everything, about the books Claire had been reading, about the kids Ethan had been teaching, about the small, ordinary moments that made up their days. When they finally hung up, Ethan sat in the darkness of his apartment. She was coming back. And this time, he was ready. The following Wednesday, Ethan stood outside Maggie's diner, the same place where he'd met Lena weeks before. Claire had suggested it, neutral ground, familiar but not loaded with memories. He arrived 10 minutes early. He wore jeans and a casual sweater, no suit, no armor, just himself. At exactly 6 o'clock, Claire walked up the sidewalk. She wore a simple green dress and a denim jacket. Her hair was down, falling past her shoulders. She looked peaceful, rested, beautiful. Their eyes met, and Ethan felt everything he'd been holding inside rush to the surface. Hi, Claire said. Hi. They stood there for a moment, just looking at each other. Then Claire smiled. Should we go inside? Yeah, let's go inside. They sat in a booth by the window. The diner was quiet. A few other customers scattered throughout. Soft music played from a jukebox in the corner. They ordered coffee and pie, apple for Claire, pecan for Ethan. For a while they just talked, catching up, filling in the gaps of the past 7 weeks. Claire told him about her aunt's property, about the mornings she spent painting on the porch, about the small town where everyone knew everyone. Ethan told her about the youth center, about the kids who reminded him why he loved building things in the first place, about the runs he'd started taking, the peace he'd found in simplicity. You sound different, Claire said. I feel different. Good different? Yeah, good different. Claire took a bite of her pie. Then she set down her fork and looked at him directly. I need to ask you something, she said. Okay. Do you regret it? Ending the engagement, walking away from the merger, all of it. Ethan didn't hesitate. No. Not even a little? Not even a little. He leaned forward. Claire, I spent my whole life doing what was expected of me, building what I was supposed to build, being who I was supposed to be, and I was miserable. I just didn't realize it until I met you. But you didn't end it for me. No, I ended it for myself, but you showed me that I could. He reached across the table and took her hand. You showed me what honesty looks like, what strength looks like, and I'm a better person because of it. Claire's eyes filled with tears. I was so scared. Scared that you'd resent me. Scared that I'd just be another expectation you were trying to meet. You're not. You never were. Ethan squeezed her hand. I love you because you're you. Not because you fit into my life. Not because you make things easier. But because when I'm with you, I feel like I can breathe. A tear slipped down Claire's cheek. She wiped it away and laughed. You're making me cry in a diner. Sorry. Don't be, she smiled. I needed to hear that. So what now? Ethan asked. What do you need from me? Claire thought for a moment. I need to know that we're equals, that you won't make decisions for us without talking to me, that I'm not just someone you take care of. I'm someone you build with. I can do that. And I need us to go slow, not because I don't trust you, but because I want to do this right. Slow is good, Claire smiled. Yeah? Yeah. She squeezed his hand. Then let's try. Let's see where this goes. I'd like that. They finished their pie. They talked and laughed. They made plans for the weekend. A walk in the park, dinner at a quiet restaurant. Simple things, real things. When they finally left the diner, the sun was setting. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink. They walked slowly down the sidewalk, not touching yet, just walking side by side. Can I ask you something? Ethan said. Of course. Are you back for good, or are you still figuring things out? Claire looked at him. I'm back, not just for you, for me too. I realized that running away wasn't the answer. Being here is, building a life I'm proud of, with or without you. But hopefully with me, Claire smiled. Hopefully with you. They reached Claire's car. She unlocked it but didn't get in. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For waiting? For not pushing? For letting me figure things out? Ethan stepped closer. Thank you for coming back. They looked at each other. The space between them felt electric. Then Claire leaned up and kissed him. It was soft, gentle, real. When she pulled back, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. Slow, right? He whispered. Claire laughed. Slow. I can do slow. Good. She kissed him again. Then she got in her car. Ethan watched her drive away, but this time it didn't feel like goodbye. It felt like a beginning. Over the next several weeks, Ethan and Claire built something new. They went on dates, real dates, not fancy dinners or charity events, but walks in the park, movies on Friday nights, breakfast at Maggie's Diner. They talked about everything, their fears, their dreams, the things that kept them up at night. Ethan told her about the pressure he'd felt growing up, about losing his parents young, about the fear that he'd never be enough. Claire told him about her father leaving, about the years she spent watching her mother struggle, about the fear that she'd never be chosen. They learned each other, slowly, carefully, and they learned themselves. Ethan continued working at the youth center. He scaled back his hours at the office, not dramatically, but enough to breathe. Claire started her own small driving business, private clients, flexible hours. She loved the independence. They didn't rush. They didn't force it. They just showed up, day after day, building trust, building love. 3 months after that first dinner at Maggie's, Ethan invited Claire to his apartment for the first time. She arrived on a Saturday afternoon carrying a bottle of wine and a nervous smile. "This is nice," she said, looking around. The apartment was clean and modern, but warmer than she expected. Books on the shelves, photos on the walls, signs of life. "Thanks, I've been making some changes." They cooked dinner together, pasta and salad, nothing fancy, but it felt like home. After dinner, they sat on the couch with glasses of wine. Music played softly in the background. "Can I tell you something?" Ethan said. "Always. I used to think love was supposed to be hard, like if it wasn't a struggle, it wasn't real. And now? Now I know that love can be easy, when it's with the right person." He looked at her. "You make everything easier, Claire, not because you solve my problems, but because you make me want to be better." Claire set down her wine glass. "You make me feel safe, not because you protect me from the world, but because you let me be myself." They looked at each other for a long moment. Then Ethan said, "I know we're taking things slow, and I respect that, but I need you to know something." "What?" "This isn't temporary for me. You're not temporary. I'm in this, For as long as you'll have me." Claire felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm in this too." "Yeah?" "Yeah." Ethan pulled her close. She rested her head on his chest. He wrapped his arms around her, and for the first time in his life, Ethan felt completely at peace. 6 months later, on a bright Saturday morning, Claire drove Ethan through the city. But this time, she wasn't his driver. She was his partner. They were heading to the youth center. Ethan had asked Claire to speak to the kids about starting a business, about taking risks, about following your own path. "Nervous?" Ethan asked from the passenger seat. "A little." "You'll be great." Claire glanced at him and smiled. "How do you know?" "Because you're you." The city stretched out before them. Buildings, streets, people going about their lives. But everything felt different now, lighter, brighter. "You know what I realized?" Claire said. "What?" "I spent so much time scared of being second choice, but with you, I've never felt that way. Not once." Ethan reached over and took her hand. "That's because you're not. You're my first choice. Every day, every time." Claire squeezed his hand. "You're mine too." They drove in comfortable silence. The radio played softly. Sunlight streamed through the windows. At a red light, Ethan looked at Claire, really looked at her. Her hair caught the morning light. Her expression was calm, content. "I love you," he said. Claire turned to him and smiled. "I love you too." The light turned green, and they drove forward, together. Epilogue. 1 year later, Ethan stood in the garage where he'd first met Claire. The same gray concrete, the same overhead lights, the same black sedan. But everything was different now. Claire stood beside him, her hand in his. She wore a simple white dress. He wore a navy suit. They'd gotten married that morning, a small ceremony. Just family and close friends. Marcus had been Ethan's best man. Lena had walked Claire down the aisle. It was perfect. Now they stood in the garage, looking at the car that had brought them together. "Remember the first time I drove you?" Claire asked. "Of course. You changed the radio when the engagement announcement came on." "You noticed that?" "I noticed everything about you." Ethan smiled. "I just didn't know what it meant yet." Claire leaned against him. "I was so nervous that day. I thought you were just another rich guy who'd treat me like I was invisible. And instead? Instead, you saw me, really saw me." Ethan wrapped his arms around her. "Best decision I ever made, hiring you." Claire laughed. "Best decision I ever made, saying yes." They stood there for a moment, just holding each other. Then Ethan pulled back and opened the car door. "What are you doing?" Claire asked. "One last drive, as driver and passenger." Claire raised an eyebrow. "You want me to drive you? On our wedding day?" "I want you to drive me every day, for the rest of our lives." Claire smiled. Tears filled her eyes. "You're ridiculous." "I know." She slid into the driver's seat. Ethan got in beside her, not in the back, beside her, where he belonged. Claire started the engine. The car hummed to life. "Where to?" she asked. Ethan looked at her, at the woman who had changed his life, who had shown him what love really meant. "Anywhere," he said, "as long as it's with you." Claire smiled, and they drove, into the city, into the sunset, into the rest of their lives, together. The end.